let's get into the giant mailbag.
What crazy thing did City do this week?
It's time for Mattress Running the Numbers. Ready for the main event?
The main event.
Frequent Miler on the air starts now. Today's main event: which is the most rewarding hotel loyalty program? We will get into that. We're going to compare the Marriott to Hyatt to Hilton, etc. And we're going to tell you once and for all which one is absolutely the single most rewarding. And it's not as obvious as it may sound to some longtime listeners, but we'll see. We'll see when we get into the full details. Anyway, let's dive into the giant mailbag. Today's giant mail comes from me. I wanted to
sending it in today.
I'm sending it in. I wanted to report on last week. Our card talk segment was about the Chase Inc. business card and how great it is, and took my own advice and had me, my wife, and my son all apply for the Chase Inc. card yesterday. And all three of us instantly approved. So that was pretty exciting.
That's
so
awesome.
This is the
90,000 point offer on a card with no annual fee. What?
That's right. Awesome offer. And some interesting things came out of that. So for one thing, at least two of us, if not three of us, well, all three of us already have Chase Inc. cards that are open. And at least two of us,
the same Chase Inc.
Chase Inc.
right?
Cash cards.
Yes.
So the exact same card already open. Chase does not have the same rules with the Inc. cards that they do with most of their other cards. Most of the other cards, you can't get the same one again, or at least not without canceling the old one you had. And it usually has to be like anywhere from 24 to 48 months since you last got a bonus. But the Inc. cards don't have those requirements. So we all have the Inc. cash cards open, and we got new ones, approved for new ones. At least two of the three of us used the exact same business information. So it's not like we used a second business to open a second Inc. cash. We're able to do the same exact business. And then, so that's pretty interesting. And then the super interesting thing is I'm personally over 524. Meaning I've signed up for 5 or more cards in the past 24 months that show up on my credit report, and Chase usually won't approve you for new cards with that situation. For whatever reason, they seem to be inking more than the usual number of inks these days with this current offer. So pretty exciting stuff. Let me say too, the reason that I felt like it was a good time for me to apply was that if I got denied, I'm going to be dropping under 524 in a few months, and I have some time to call later and reopen the application under the old sign-up bonus rules. And since we know that this 90K offer is ending soon, like really soon, I figured I might as well get in that application and tie it up so that I could reopen it later.
Right.
I thinking I'd get rejected, but I wasn't rejected, so I don't have to worry about reopening it later.
That's awesome. That's also, I mean, within your household, that's 270,000 bonus points, right? Because the 90K on each. So within your household, that's a nice little haul, not even including the points earned from the spending requirement, which, you know, if you do that all at an office supply store, that's another 30,000 points on each card. So that's a nice little haul. If you could pull that in on no annual fee cards, there's really no downside that I can think of here. Now's the time.
Right. Yeah. It felt like I hit a mini lottery yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
It was great. So I have to say part of what motivated me too was that on Frequent Miler Insiders, we've been seeing a number of posts from people who wrote about getting multiple Chase Inc. cards all at once, or being over 524 and getting approved and things like that just like, wow, it's time to go.
Right.
So,
well, and you know, in years past, instant approvals weren't that common on Inc. cards. Right. And now we're suddenly seeing quite a few people getting instant approvals, at least on the no annual fee ones, the Inc. Cash and the Inc. Business Unlimited. I'm not sure if that's applied also to the Inc. Business Preferred, but at the very least, there's a shot and there really hadn't been much of
Right.
a shot for a long time. So
Hmm.
it's worth taking a swing at that one. And remember that they have upped the referral bonus now to 40,000 points. So if you're in a two-player household and you have the Ink Cash card and your partner would like to open a new one, notice how I said that. I didn't say your partner doesn't have one. I said your partner wants to open a new one. Then you can refer them and get 40,000 points. However, the referral offer is different. It's not the 90,000 point offer. It's only 75,000 points for the person opening the account. That's only on the referral offer. However, you still come out ahead in a two-player household if you count all the points as being equal within your household. Then
True.
you end up with more total points that way. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Yep. Yeah. No.
Okay.
Great point.
Okay.
All right.
So that brings us, I think, to this week's card talk, right? Are we on card talk?
That's correct. It's
okay.
card talk time. It sounds like we were just doing card talk, but
it does sound
this
that way.
week's
But
this week's card talk is the IHG Premier card and the almost identical Premier Business card. So both of them currently have a better than usual welcome bonus with where the Premier, that's the personal IHG card, is at 175,000 points after 3K spend. And the Premier Business card's at 140,000 points. So they have different bonuses right now, but otherwise most things about the cards are the same. And they're pretty interesting cards for just under $100 a year. You get you earn 3 points per dollar for as your base spending earnings, 10 points per dollar if you're actually spending at an IHG property. You get 5 points per dollar for various categories like travel, dining, gas. There's some other business categories as well on the business card. And every year upon renewal, you get a free night certificate worth 40,000 points. And so you can actually add points to make it more valuable. So you can, let's say you want to stay somewhere that costs 50,000 points, you can add 10,000 points and stay a night. The cards also give you fourth night free on awards days. It gives you platinum elite status with IHG. Gives you when you spend $20,000 in a calendar year, gives you 10,000 bonus points and $100 cash. And when you spend 40,000 points, it gives you diamond status, which will give you like free breakfast at IHG properties. And then you also get up to $50 in United Travel Bank funds each year, which is doled out 6 months at a time as $25 credit. And then that $25 disappears if you don't use it. So I don't value that piece all that much, but the rest of it is pretty nice.
Yeah, I think it's actually very interesting suddenly. And that's coming from somebody who's not really a big IHG fan. Like there are some nice IHG properties I've stayed at. I don't dislike IHG. I just don't tend to like them as much as I do Hyatt and Marriott and Hilton. But I look at this and I say, well, man, there's a lot of value to be had there. The platinum status that it comes with doesn't give you any concrete benefits other than more points per dollar, I think, at properties, and when we're talking about on property benefits. However, I've often had good luck getting upgrades overseas at IHG properties with platinum status. So if you travel internationally, it can be useful for that. And really, we've seen opportunities come and go over this last year or two to get really good value out of IHG points, even just, on one-offs, 1 or 2 nights here or there, but certainly with the fourth night free. So I just think that it's a program to keep an eye on. And now with diamond status, including free breakfast, suddenly this card is, I don't know, I think it's pretty intriguing, actually. And again, that's coming from somebody who's not a huge IHG fan, but just the other day I booked a new property in Washington, D.C. It's Yours Truly, D.C., I think is what it's called, the part of the Vignette collection. It's brand new. There's only like 3 of these properties. Yeah, there's only 3 of these properties in the world. So it's the first one in the United States. And it was a weekend when all of the hotels were $300-400 a night, and this place was 25,000 points per night. So, it was a great value, worth, certainly a good value on the points. So I think this offer can be worth a good bit and is worth considering, especially if you like IHG properties. It's a good card to have.
Right. So real quickly, if you were thinking of getting a new IHG card, would you go for the consumer card with the 175K bonus or the business card with the 140K bonus?
Yeah, it depends on whether or not you're concerned about adding to your 524 count, right? I mean, if you want to keep those slots open, and when we talk about 524, as Greg said, if you open 5 or more consumer cards that show up on your credit report in the last 24 months, Chase usually, I gotta say usually now, right, won't approve you for a new card, any of their cards. But the business cards generally do not, certainly the Chase business cards do not add to your 524 account. So it wouldn't prevent you from getting another card in the future. So if that's attractive to you because you want to pick up other Chase cards in the future, then I guess I'd go with the business card. Otherwise, I like more points. So I'd probably go with the consumer side. Is there a benefit I'm missing? It's different.
Not really. I mean, the business card has some additional 5X categories, but 5X isn't that exciting with IHG. The points on average tend to be worth around 0.6 of a cent each. So 5X, I mean, is about 3% rewards, which is not bad, but it's just not exciting. And, so the other thing is that the spend, if you're going to do big spends, so if you're going to spend to the 40,000, there are advantages and disadvantages, but with the business card, that spend won't affect your credit utilization ratio on your credit score. So it could be helpful sort of having it go to a business card as opposed to a personal card, depending on how you manage that, your credit and everything.
When you pay things off and whatnot. Of course, you want to pay everything off before you owe any interest on it, but we mean more so like how the balances get reported to credit bureaus. Like it's a little complicated, but you're right. There is some advantage potentially there on the business side if you're going to be doing the big spend.
Kind of minor.
Yeah, but it is pretty minor. I think I agree. But that extra 35,000 points on the consumer card, if we're valuing them at 0.6 cents per point, I don't know, make the math easier for me. Half a cent per point. That's another $175 worth of points on the consumer card. So, I mean, that's, I don't know, good enough reason for me to at least be pretty interested in the consumer card. Either way, though, you're talking about what, I mean, at 0.6 is what six, I mean, hundreds of dollars, almost $1,000 worth of points on that 175K offers. So that's a pretty hot offer.
Right. And if you use it on a hotel that has good award rates like the one you described, and then especially if you do a 4th night free booking, you can do really, really well. So yeah, those points can be worth quite a lot.
So, all right,
cool.
That's our card talk for the week. Okay, let's talk about award talk. Awards we booked this week, or awards that have changed this week, or award charts that have devalued this week. What's going on, Greg?
Why don't you talk? Why don't you talk about the Virgin thing?
I got to be the bearer of bad
I've got 2 updates on my personal bookings.
All right, yeah, I get to be the bearer of bad news and tell everybody that just last week, I'm pretty sure, just last week, I think it was very recently, I mentioned that with Virgin Atlantic joining SkyTeam, I feel like this ANA first class sweet spot is living on borrowed time. I'm pretty sure it was just last week that I said I could see that one ending sooner rather than later. I'm sorry that I predicted that because unfortunately I was right about that. I didn't realize how quickly that would come true. That stinks. But just this week, Virgin Atlantic supremely devalued the first class awards on ANA from the West Coast and the East Coast that we've talked about a whole bunch this year already. So if you've been listening to the show, you know that they used to charge 55,000 points one way for first class between the West Coast and Japan, or 60,000 points each way from the East Coast to Japan. Unfortunately, they increased rates about 42% on those. So now it's at 72.5K from the West Coast and 85,000 from the East Coast. Now, that's really painful compared to the old award rates. Although, in fairness, it's still an incredible value for first class awards. You're not going to do much better than that for a first class award to Asia. So it's, it's one of those things where I'm disappointed, but at the same time, it's still a decent deal, just not the amazing deal it was.
It is, but it's gone up enough to where if you do see that ANA first class award space, it's then worth doing the calculations of like, would it be better using miles that don't pass along fuel surcharges, even if you're spending more miles, versus Virgin Atlantic, where you will pay the fuel surcharges. And so it's more of a balancing act. Whereas before it was like, it didn't matter if you're paying $400 in fuel surcharges, it was still such a,
right.
so much better of a
value.
deal than any other option. Yeah.
Right. No, that's a great point. So that's unfortunate. And it, of course, the most unfortunate part to me is that Virgin Atlantic did this overnight without any advance notice, and more importantly, without any notification to members. It's not even like they, sent out an announcement after the fact and said, hey, we've changed award rates on this. We've updated our award chart to provide you even more value. They didn't tell me they enhanced anything. They just didn't say anything, it's like
Right.
they're just going to leave you to figure it out on your own. I think that's kind of shady and unfortunate that that's the way they do things. Of course, that is just the way Virgin Atlantic appears to do things, because they did the same with Delta a couple of years ago. So
yeah.
I also said last week that I wouldn't expect any advance notice out of Virgin Atlantic when they're going to change this. And sure enough, they didn't prove me wrong, which is unfortunate.
I'd say the one surprising thing is that they still have an award chart for ANA. Like, they haven't broken off that relationship. So, I'm not really sure that it's related to the Sky Team thing. I mean, I just don't know. It might have more to do with just because a lot of people booked that award recently. Someone might have finally taken a look at it and said, whoa, that's out of whack.
Did you kill the deal, Greg? Are you a deal killer?
They were like, some guy booked 5 people.
We can't let that happen again. They're going to Instagram pictures of that. Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah.
All right.
I'm very grateful that we got in on it when we did. And I'm very, happy for all of our listeners and readers that got in on it beforehand. And for everyone else, sorry, it's an example of why it does pay to jump on things as soon as possible when these kind of outstanding deals become available. They don't last. I mean, that's just in general. If anything is sort of an out of whack, such a great deal, it's very unlikely to last long. This lasted many, many years, actually, but part of the reason is probably because ANA so rarely released first class award space before. Now they recently had a flood of award space, and that's probably why some eyes got drawn to it, I would guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so that was Virgin Atlantic. Now speaking of ANA First Class, you booked a totally different first class experience that is arguably even better than ANA this week. Am I right?
Yeah. So Etihad First Apartments is their first class that they fly on the Airbus A380 jets. And it's recently come back in service just for the route between London and Abu Dhabi. And we got alerted by a reader that in January of 2024, like, awards were pretty wide open for up to 2 people per flight to book with partner miles. So that meant it was possible to book with either Aeroplan or American Airlines. I mean, there's probably some other partners that I'm not thinking of, but those are the 2 main ones for Etihad. And I flew on that pretty much, I think it was pretty much right before the pandemic.
Yeah, I think so.
Before it just happened. It was just a chance thing that it happened to be that exact route. Like, I was leaving the Maldives, going to catch up with my wife who was in London. And so I flew Etihad business class from the Maldives to Abu Dhabi, and then first class apartments to London. And she mind blown by that experience. I mean, just to give you an idea, every seat is a fully enclosed suite with walls. And imagine you're just walking down the aisle where there are doors to each suite on your left and right. So there's just a single aisle. Each suite takes up, half the width of the jet other than the aisle. And so you go into your door, and it's basically, you've got sort of like a hallway walking along, like a bench seating, which turns into a single bed later. And then on the left, or on the other side of the bench seating, is your big captain chair type of thing. And so that was awesome. And then the service was spectacular. I mean, like the purser came and greeted me, and then the onboard chef came to ask what kind of things I like to eat, and they brought, top shelf champagne around, said, which would I like? How about both? Sure. This is the type of experience you get on Etihad First Class. It's just over the top, amazing. If you want a shower on board, there is a shower. And it's incredible. And I've done one other sweets product in the past, which was Singapore Sweets, which I also blew my mind back then. And my wife had been complaining a little bit, not hard, but that she's never gotten to go on one of those amazing ones. Now don't feel too bad for, like, she flies international business class all the time thanks to what we do. It's just, she's only flown international first class like once or twice, and that was Lufthansa, which was very nice, but it's not these enclosed suite type of things. So feeling bad for her, I was like,
she's like,
let's
listen,
book,
Greg,
let's book her and
I together.
ANA
first class for 5 people, and I was not one of them.
That's right. That was a discussion at home. Yeah.
So it was time. So I mean, way to up the ante here at you had first class apartments. I mean, that's the way to go, I guess. Right. I mean, if you got to fly, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. So we're hoping to marry this with a trip to South Africa or maybe the Maldives, or we haven't decided really yet, but we've got that flight booked. So pretty exciting.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. That'll be a lot of fun, I'm sure. All right. So that was this week's award talk. Oh, wait, did you mention how you booked it?
I booked it with American Airlines Miles.
Okay,
so
maybe you did.
So the thing is, I don't think I mentioned it, that with American, you can't find Etihad award space online anymore. You used to be able to. And so I had to call to book it. Saved a few miles, but over Air Canada. But the real advantage is that American doesn't charge award change or cancellation fees at all. So it all felt very speculative to me as to whether we'd really do it. So it was definitely worth me calling in to get that done. So yeah,
very good. And you said it was easy to call in too. You just called the U.S. number and they had no problem.
I just called the U.S. number. It said there was like a 30-minute wait and asked to do a call back. So I did that and that worked fine.
Yeah. No, yeah. I meant more so that the agents were able to see it, because we've heard, in previous times that sometimes the US based agents aren't able to see Etihad first class space, at least to and from the United States. So workarounds been like calling foreign call centers like in Australia and that sort of thing. But here you were able to just call the US number and get it done. So
yeah. And luckily they were able to easily see it and book it, and very cheerfully too. I appreciated that.
Very good. Yeah. All right. What crazy thing did American Express do this week?
What did American Express do this week?
Well, the points parade marches on, and the beat is kicking up a notch this week with new offers out, new referral offers out on the Amex Gold and Amex Platinum cards. Now, you might remember that some cardholders have had the ability to refer to an offer on the Amex Gold card that's good for 90,000 points after 4,000 spend in the first 6 months. And some cardholders have had the ability to refer to an Amex Platinum card offer that includes 150,000 points after $6,000 spend, I think, in the first 6 months. And that's still true, but now they've kicked it up a notch, and some of those people are now able to refer to those same offers with an additional $200 in statement credits for purchases that happen in the first 3 months. So they're adding $200 on top of either of those offers, which is nutty, right?
It's so nutty. So first, if someone's not experienced with this stuff, you might say, well, why are those offers so exciting when you talked about 175K IHG offer earlier? Well, that's because IHG points can only be used for IHG hotels. And remember, we said IHG points are worth around 0.6 of a cent each, whereas with American Express points, the ability to transfer them to a huge number of airline programs makes them worth a lot more. You can transfer to various airline programs and book incredible awards, like you could transfer to Air Canada and book Etihad First Class when it becomes available, that type of thing, and get incredible value. So we sort of on average say they're worth about 1.55 cents each, but you can do much better than that. And so a 90K offer with American Express points is worth a lot more actually than a 175K offer from IHG, in my opinion.
Oh, it sure is. I mean, just at a base level, you look at something like, you can often fly business class one way to Europe with programs like Air France for about 55,000 miles one way. So you could transfer just over half of those points to Air France for a one-way business class award. It'll cost you about another $220-ish on top in taxes and fees. And there are even better deals. I mean, you might be able to get Iberia business class from the East Coast for 34,000 miles one way. So that 190K offer could more than cover a round trip business class flight on Iberia between, the Eastern US anyway and Madrid. So, and there are lots of other examples in that range between 35 and 50 or 60,000 points. And that's just to one continent in business class, but you got plenty of different options, so that's worth potentially a lot more if you value premium cabin international travel. So we've got an entire post on Amex membership rewards sweet spot. So I'll link to that in the show notes on top of linking to these card offers. And I should mention that we talked about the IHG card earlier, and I'll have a link to that in the show notes also. Anytime you're wondering, you have more questions about the stuff we've talked about on the show, look to the show notes for links to more information. And then obviously also you can reach out and ask questions in our frequent miler insiders group and that sort of thing. But I wasn't done with the MX point parade here. So those new offers, I mean, they were already great and we had talked about them before. And if you need to know why they're great, again, I'll link to some resources in the show notes, but those are fantastic offers on good cards. But now upping the ante even more is that if you have an Amex card right now that earns membership rewards points, if you have a consumer card that earns membership rewards points, then you probably have the ability to refer new card holders and earn both a points bonus, and that varies on the cards, depending on which card it is you're generating your referral link from. And also now, this started March 9th, you have the ability to generate a link, and you'll see that you'll also earn 5 extra points per dollar at U.S. supermarkets for the next 3 months on up to $25,000 in spend when your friend is approved. So let's say you've got a link to that Amex Gold 90K offer from your Amex Gold card and you refer a friend. They're going to get their awesome offer, the 90,000 points and the $200 statement credit if that's what the offer shows. And you are going to get both your point bonus, maybe 20 or 25,000 points, and an extra 5 points per dollar at U.S. supermarkets on top of the 4 points per dollar that card already earns at U.S. supermarkets on the first $25,000 in spend each year. So you're talking about earning 9x at supermarkets on your Amex Gold card if you refer somebody and they're approved.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah. So lots of points to be had.
And if you can't refer to the 90K offer, you're not totally at a loss, right?
Well, no, I mean, there's for a lot of reasons. Number one, if you don't have a direct link to the 90K offer, then you might recommend that your friend try in some different browsers and see, because sometimes people get lucky and get targeted for these offers, particularly if they're using a browser they've never used before, a new device, that sort of thing. So you may actually be able to refer them to that offer. They may see that offer after they click through your link. You can't count on that every time, but that's certainly worth a shot. Also keep in mind that with Amex multi-referrals, you can refer someone to just about any Amex card and you earn the referral bonus. So let's say your Amex Gold card has this +5 offer and you have a friend who wants to open the no annual fee Blue Business Plus card. You can generate your referral link from the Amex Gold card, give it to your friend, and they can click through that referral link and then click that they're interested in business cards instead and open a Blue Business Plus, and they'll get whatever the offer is on the Blue Business Plus, and you get your +5 at supermarkets and whatever the point bonus showed on your Amex Gold card. We have a post detailing how to do that, and I'll link to that in the show notes also. But that might make this worthwhile. If you're in a 2-player household, you might refer player 2 to a no annual fee card like the Amex Everyday card or the Blue Business Plus card, or a card that waives the annual fee in the first year, just so you can earn 5x on your on all your supermarket spend for 3 months. I mean, that could be worthwhile.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, just make sure you're clear with your friend if you're hoping that they get a better offer than what's the default. That clear with them to like keep trying different browsers, try Chrome Incognito or Firefox private mode and things like that, and bring up the offer in those things and just see whether it pops up, and not to apply until they see the best offer, because you don't want your friend to do that. Now, in your post about this, Nick, you guaranteed their friends undying gratitude, right?
Well, I did mention that, when your friend is approved, that's one of the things you'll get, their undying gratitude for the awesome offer that you helped them get. I can't guarantee that. I can't guarantee it. I put a little asterisk in there.
You
if you
did.
missed that, Greg, there was a little asterisk saying I can't guarantee that part. Your friend should be grateful that you helped them get in on the Amex point parade. That's for sure.
I enjoyed you adding the terms and conditions for the gratitude to the post. That was good.
Very good. All right. Okay. So I think we're going to skip over Mattress running the numbers this week because, we've gone long here already. We're going to get right into this week's main event.
Main event time, which is the most rewarding hotel loyalty program? Wow, that's sort of awkward to say. It looked fine when I wrote it, but saying it out loud is kind of awkward. Anyway, we're going to look at Hyatt, Wyndham, Marriott, IHG, and Hilton, and compare and contrast which one's most rewarding, not just rewarding as far as like points earned, but also things like elite benefits and whatnot. So let's start though with points earned. So suppose you frequently travel and book paid stays at hotels. Which ones should you book to get the most rewards for those stays? So what we did is we have reasonable redemption values for each hotel chain. And what that means is we looked at what's the sort of average value you get per point when booking hotels in the United States with these points. And we said, all right, the median value you get, that's a good reasonable redemption value, which means if you use your points to book a hotel, you have about a 50% chance of getting that much value or better. And sometimes it could be a lot better from your points. And so we use these reasonable redemption values, I'm going to call them RRVs from now on, to calculate what is the sort of cashback equivalent reward you get when you stay somewhere. So for example, like when you stay at a Marriott, most Marriotts give you 10 points per dollar for your stay. And so with Marriott being their RRV is 0.8, getting 10 points per dollar, that's an 8% return, right?
Right. In the form of Marriott points, right? 8%
in the form of Marriott points. Yep. Exactly. So looking at it that way and not accounting for elite status, which can give you more points, it's actually very easy to compare. So Hyatt gives you an 11% return. Wyndham gives you 9%, Marriott 8%, IHG 6%, Hilton 5%.
Wow, Hilton only 5%. Doesn't that seem really low?
It does. And there's two things going on there. One is that Hilton points have the lowest RRV of anyone in this comparison. They're at about half a cent each. And the other thing going on is this is not including bonuses. Like, so hotel chains run various bonuses all the time. Some are really complicated. Like we made fun of Hyatt's last week, I think it was, where you have to, I'm not even going to repeat it, but it's very complicated figuring it out. Whereas Hilton frequently runs very simple. It's like double points on weekdays or triple on weekends, something like that. And so you can do much better than 5% back with Hilton, but it requires there being some kind of bonus going on at the time.
Yeah. I want to jump in really quickly just to mention that when you mentioned the reasonable redemption value is what we figure you can reasonably get without a lot of effort to maximize. And it bears repeating if you said this, I missed it if you did, but our reasonable redemption values are as scientific as they can be. And I say that because, well, maybe not as much as they could be, but I'd say more scientific than most, because you go through all the not all the various, you go through a number of cities in the United States looking for, the redemptions at hotels that are well reviewed that you would actually want to stay at. And you look at a few different dates and figure out how much the points are worth, right? So it's not like we're not just sticking a finger in the air and deciding how much points are worth. That's actually based on some semi-scientific analysis, right?
That's a very good way of putting it. Semi-scientific analysis, and purely objective analysis, whether or not it's like correct. You could argue whether the methodology is exactly right, but there's no subjective component to it at all. It's 100% whatever the numbers say is what we produce here.
Right.
Yeah. So that's if you're staying somewhere and you have no status. So this is like, let's say you're you're a consultant and you travel a lot for work. And so company's going to pay for your stay. So you might as well stay somewhere rewarding. Looks like Hyatt's the place to go if you can find them.
I mean, is that a surprise? So that's going to be true, not only because of the return, but I mean, also, of course, we've talked lots of times about how great Hyatt Elite status is. So, if you can get a lot of Hyatt stays and enough to get Elite status, then not only will you get a good return on the dollars spent, but you also will get a great experience. Well, potentially anyway. I guess if you're staying mostly at Hyatt places and Hyatt houses, I guess it may not make much of a difference. But certainly, if you're staying at the full service properties, it'll make a difference in the long run. But we'll get there. So that's no status, no card. Like you're just showing up off the street.
Right. So if you take that advice and you start, staying at lots and lots of Hyatts, pretty soon you're going to have top tier status. And so let's look at by hotel chain. If you have top tier status, what's the return? Because some chains, if you have top tier status, they give you double points, whereas Hyatt only gives you 30% additional points for being top tier. So that can shuffle things around, except Hyatt still stays at the top with a 14% return if you have top tier Hyatt status. But Marriott catches up.
They're not alone there.
They're not alone. They're not alone. Marriott catches up with also 14% because they do double your points. IHG also doubles your points. And so they almost catch up with 13% return. Wyndham, who was second, now is dropping down to 11%. So they're next to last. And Hilton isn't looking as awful as before with 10% return, but they're still at the bottom of our list.
They're still at the bottom, but it's worth mentioning here that now if they have one of those double point promotions where you earn 2x points, suddenly they'll go from last to first. And so, right? Because I mean, if you had double base points,
but not by as much as you're saying though, right?
Right.
Because so you're just doubling the base points, not the elite bonus points. So you'd go from 10% to 15%.
Right. So only 1% better.
14.
Right.
So yeah, but if Hyatt's running an even like reasonably good promotion, they probably would still come out ahead.
It depends. It depends. Because I mean, Hilton will do double points. They'll also do sometimes triple points. And so, it depends on.
You can definitely do really well.
Yeah.
You can do really well during their promos for sure.
They can suddenly be competitive. So, but it's interesting to me that everybody is like pretty clustered here. Like it's closer, I think, than I would have expected at top tier status with no credit card. Because, if Hilton is running a double points promotion, then you're talking about 4 out of the 5 programs here being separated by a total of 2 percentage points, right? It's pretty close.
That's it, right? Yeah, it's very, very close. All right, but a lot of credit cards, a lot of hotel branded credit cards do 2 things for you. One, they give you elite status of some form, not usually top tier, but sometimes, and they give you more points per dollar for using that credit card at their hotel than others. So I combined those 2 things. I said, what if you had a hotel credit card that gave you elite status? So now you've got your elite status bonus when you stay at this hotel, but you also pay for your stay with the card. And what would be your return on your spend at these chains? So with Hyatt, you get with the Hyatt World of Hyatt card, you get bottom tier Discover status. So I shouldn't say bottom tier. If you no status is the first, this is bottom tier, I guess. Then the next is Discoverist, and then you go up from there. Discoverist doesn't give you many benefits, but it gives you a little bit extra points. And the credit card gives you 4 points per dollar at Hyatt stays, and overall you end up with a 20% return on your spend.
I mean,
pretty darn good.
That's pretty good. After you talk about all these, I'm going to have a point to add. But okay, so 20% Hyatt is at the top still.
Yep.
Pretty good.
Yep. Now, Wyndham recovers here because the Wyndham Earner Business Card, which we've talked about many, many times, gives you top tier diamond sets just by having the card. And it gives you a whole bunch of points, I think 8 points per dollar at Wyndham hotels. So you're getting, just tons and tons of points from Wyndham. That ends up with an 18% return on your spend at Wyndham. Marriott, the Bonvoy Brilliant card gives you platinum status with a 75% bonus on points earned. And so you end up with a 17% return on spend. So that's just under Wyndham, like really close.
Sort of. Although just under Wyndham, would we say that? Oh, yes, it is. It's 1 percentage point under Wyndham. But you probably also ought to consider at that point that the Wyndham card costs $95 per year and the Marriott card costs $650 per year. So there's a slight difference in the annual fee. Of course, obviously the benefits also are quite different. I'm not saying that the Brilliant card isn't worth it, just that there are other points to compare there. But I got other points to make too. So okay, so they're at 17%. And Hilton and IHG are what, somewhere in the trash?
So no, they're right below Marriott with 16% each. So with Hilton, the Aspire card gives you diamond status, and you'll get 16% return between earning 14x by using your card at a Hilton property, plus the diamond bonus that you get. And IHG platinum status, which you get with the Premier card, which we talked about in the intro to the show, will give you a total 16% return. So actually, any of these cards give you very solid returns if you're using them for your hotel stays.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are all good rebates. So and those are all, again, before any promotions, and all of the different chains, really. I mean, I mentioned Hilton because they seem to be running one almost constantly, or at least for a long time they were, but everybody runs promotions. So then you got to crunch the numbers on the promotions because these are all so close. There's only a couple of percentage points differentiating them that you got to look at the promos and see, okay, well, how many more points can I earn from the promo? But I struggled with this category a little bit because this is determining, like Greg said, if you've got elite status and you're using the credit card to pay for your stay, which is a useful metric to have on the one hand. On the other hand, man, we see so many Amex offers and Chase offers for hotel chains that it often changes the calculus as to which card I would use to pay anyway. And so then it becomes a little murky. Well, am I going to use that card to pay for every stay because I know there's going to be an Amex offer out that I'm going to use for IHG or Hyatt or whatever it might be? And so I actually don't end up, oddly, I don't end up using the chain's credit card all that often at the hotel, although I'm not paying for that many stays. If you're paying for stays on like a weekly basis or a couple times a month, there probably won't be enough new Amex and Chase offers for you to be constantly using one of those to pay for your stays. But if you're like me and you don't pay for a lot of cash stays, then you may not end up using the card every time to pay for them.
Yeah, I'll buy that. That's probably true. And boy, it seems to me like there's a million variations of that sort of same concept or similar concept. Like, for example, cashback portals. You could go through a cashback portal, and with IHG, maybe you can usually find anywhere from 8 to 12% cash back. Whereas the other chains, not so much. You might be lucky to find 4% with some of the other chains. And so that alone could change the calculation as well.
Totally. Because Hilton typically doesn't offer any cash back for Diamond members through portals. But whereas you'll see IHG pretty frequently, and every now and then you'll see a good, return from Marriott. I don't think Hyatt is on any of the shopping portals at all. So that certainly could make the difference, all in one. And with Marriott and IHG, at least, we should mention that Capital One Shopping has had some great targeted offers. I got targeted for 18% back at Marriott not that long long ago. So, if you're looking at
That's
this,
awesome.
you're talking about 17% between elite status and the card, and then 18% back from Capital One shopping. I mean, you're talking about a 35% return on the stay. So, so that will alone right there blow everything else out of the water with one of those targeted offers. So keep that in mind also.
It totally would. All right. So all we've talked about so far, though, is the rewards from the points you get. But there's other types of rewards, because as you earn elite status, you get goodies for being a special customer of this brand. So let's start with our favorite topic, which is breakfast. Which which chain offers their top tier elites the best breakfast benefit? The candidates are IHG, Hyatt, Marriott, and Hilton. Wyndham doesn't, to my knowledge, have a breakfast benefit, so they're not in contention here. What do you think?
I'm going to surprise you, and I'm going to say IHG. And the reason I'm going to say they have the best breakfast benefit, and I've got to add the caveat here that this whole IHG Diamond thing is so new that I feel like it's a little bit bold to call it the best, because I'd like to see how it plays out. But the reason I'm saying IHG is the best is because you get free breakfast everywhere. So there's no consulting a chart, number one, to see, do I get free breakfast there or not, which is the case with Marriott. There's no worry about a property credit not fully covering breakfast like there is with Hilton. And there's no, super light pastries lounge breakfast like you might end up with at a Hyatt that's got an open lounge. And some Hyatt, many Hyatts have great lounges, but some, of course, are going to have weaker lounge offerings. So if that's your only breakfast option, then IHG's full breakfast at an IHG property probably beats it. So I'd say IHG.
I actually totally agree. I think IHG and Hyatt are really close,
right,
but for the exact reason you said, that with Hyatt, if you're at a hotel that has a lounge that's open, then you don't get free breakfast in the restaurant. You get it in the lounge, and that is often a lesser type of breakfast than you get as a hot breakfast in the hotel's restaurant. Yeah, no, that's a surprise. I mean, it was a huge surprise when IHG rolled out their new elite benefits, and free breakfast was one of them, and it was a huge surprise to actually go to some IHG properties and experience that they were actually delivering on that. So,
no,
good for IHG there.
But we do have to say, if you like to stay at high end properties, I mean, like a lot of Andaz and Park Hyatt type properties, none of those are going to have a lounge, and they're going to have really good breakfasts usually. And I haven't stayed in enough IHG properties at the high end of the chain, I guess, to say, wow, there was an amazing breakfast at this one or that one. I've had good breakfasts, but I haven't had the same level that I have at some of the higher end Hyatt properties, I guess. So we'll see. Maybe IHG will continue to knock it out of the park. But that's, I think, the best breakfast benefit for now.
Right. And I'll also mention that IHG top tier status is much more easily gamed than Hyatt is.
Good
so
point.
with IHG, if you have the Premier card or the Premier Business card, just spend $40,000 on that card in a calendar year. You get diamond status, and that'll be good for the rest of that calendar year and all of the next. And then we don't know if this will keep going in the future, but it has been the case that if you spend the $200 or so to get ambassadors,
intercontinental ambassador
status, intercontinental ambassador status, that causes your diamond status to renew. And so then, like, each year, if you time it right and renew your ambassador status, you should be renewing your diamond status. Point is that it's theoretically possible that you could avoid even having to pay $40,000 on the card after the first year you do it, just by plunking down some money each year instead as another option. So,
or some points, I like that
IHG is,
because they let you buy that with points also.
That's good. Yep, true.
A good point. Is that what you're about to say? But
it is a good point. So there you go. IHG is winner there. What about the best credit card tier breakfast benefit? And what I mean by that is a elite status that you get just by having a credit card. The two candidates that I know of is with almost any Hilton card, except for the free one, you get Hilton Gold status, which gives you, in quotes, free breakfast. And then the Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant, which you pointed out earlier is a $650 card, but that gives you platinum status, which gives you breakfast and a big chart to try to figure out whether or not you'll really get breakfast at any given hotel.
Right. So yeah, I guess I'm going to lean to Marriott ever so slightly here, but man, I have a hard time picking between these two. Both of them can be quite good. So, especially if you're staying overseas a lot, the Hilton one can then be worthwhile because I think you still get free breakfast overseas. I don't think they changed that, did they? Am I forgetting something?
I think you do.
So you still get free breakfast, I think, at foreign properties. In the United States, you get a food and beverage credit, and that's going to vary by property. And I just think it's not going to end up covering breakfast at a lot of places entirely, right, anyway. And so that's what kind of annoys me about Hilton Gold. It used to be free breakfast, and now it's a food and beverage credit. But if you're not actually that interested in breakfast and you'd rather use the food and beverage credit for drinks or appetizers or something like that, well, I mean, hey, you may really like the way that Hilton handles it. With Marriott, you're going to get free breakfast at a lot of places, and then you'll get lounge access at most places that have a lounge. So I think it's pretty good as long as you don't have your heart set on staying at Ritz-Carlton and Edition properties, where you're not going to get free breakfast, or you're not going to get free breakfast or lounge access.
Or lounge access,
right.
Correct.
Or at like Courtyards where you're going to get $10 a person towards the little marketplace. If you even get that, because I stayed at a Courtyard this last weekend and they told me, no, they don't have that. It's only for items from their marketplace, like their little Residence Inn sort of marketplace, not from the place that makes breakfast. So who knows? So there's like some ins and outs and what have yous when it comes to Marriott. But overall, I tend to like to stay at places like St. Regis or Westin or full service Marriott's and stuff and those places. Your breakfast benefit is going to be better, I think, at Marriott because you'll get free breakfast or free lounge access.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said, but I'm going to personally just call it a tie.
Yeah,
because the fact that you could stumble into a Marriott that either is not the right brand or is one of the hotels that's on a list of exceptions, or is not on the list of exceptions but is just not adhering to the policy. Those things all happen with Marriott hotels.
That's true.
I think that dilutes the benefit, whereas I don't like that Hilton went to this food and beverage credit, but I think the delivery is more
consistent.
Consistent. Yeah,
consistent. Yeah, it is more
all right.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next category. So the best elite suite upgrade benefit. There are 3 contenders here. So with Hyatt, when you reach 50 nights, you get a milestone reward of 2 suite upgrade certificates, and at 60 nights I think you get 2 more, and each one can be used to upgrade a whole stay that's up to 7 nights long. IHG has something similar at 20 nights, and I think it's 40 nights you can pick a milestone benefit of a suite upgrade. And in this case, it's pretty similar. You could do it in advance, but with IHG, you have to wait till it's 14 days before your stay. So you can't do it a year in advance like you could with Hyatt. Marriott, when you reach 50 nights, and again, at 75 nights, you can choose a choice benefit of 5 suite night awards. So these are unlike Hyatt and IHG. They don't upgrade the whole stay. You have to use an individual certificate for each night of your stay. So if you have a 5-night stay, you can upgrade the whole thing theoretically, but the way it works is very challenging in that, first of all, many hotels opt out of this altogether. So you don't get the choice to apply them to many hotels and many brands. Those that do opt in, you don't even have a chance of getting upgraded to the suite until 5 days before your stay. And then each day your reservation goes into some kind of lottery where it may or may not get upgraded, and until the last day, then it checks one more time. And so you may or may not get into a suite at all. So that's how those three work. What do you
Yeah.
think? Is Marriott the best one?
Right. No, clearly not based on the description you just gave. And the other thing you left out is that you have to have enough to cover all of the nights of your stay. So if you got 5 of these and
Yeah.
you have a 7-night stay, can't apply any of them. So,
Right.
so yeah, there's just too many restrictions on the Marriott ones, and they clear too rarely, and there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason to figuring out whether they're going to clear or not clear. And so Marriott ones, just throw those out. They're like, they might work out. I had one work out great last year for a staircase suite at the London Renaissance St. Pancras there, and so they can
Yeah,
work out
that was
great.
sweet.
But
Sweet.
sweet, yes, but you can't count on it. Like, maybe it'll happen, maybe it
No.
won't. With
Right.
Hyatt and
Right.
IHG
Right.
though, I think it's interesting because Hyatt seems like the clear winner from the get-go, right? Because you could confirm a suite at the time of booking. And remember, you can use these on award stays or paid stays. So either way, if there's a standard suite available, it doesn't have to be available for points. If there's a standard suite available for sale, then you should be able to apply your suite upgrade if you've got one of these suite upgrade awards for up to 7 nights, which could save you a ton when you look at, if it were available with points, the number of points it might require to stay in a suite at a higher tier property. So that can be a really valuable benefit. I think it's great, but it does require 50 nights to get 2 of these. So
Yeah.
that's a tall order. Whereas IHG starts giving
Right.
them at 20 nights. That's a
20
big
nights is
difference.
really generous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I
That's
mean,
20 nights is
yeah,
within reach of a lot of people.
it really is.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, based on the title of this section, which is the best suite upgrade benefit, I think we have to say the best benefit is Hyatt, but IHG is a strong contender because the benefit kicks in at only 20 nights, which is amazing because both Marriott and Hyatt 50 nights before you get any kind of suite upgrade.
Right. And I think that's really the thing, the big thing here. I mean, it only clears 14 days in advance. So you won't know until a couple weeks before your stay that you got a suite, but you will know at least a couple weeks in advance. But I think the biggest thing, like you said, is that bar of 20 nights is within reach for so many more people than 50 or more nights. So it's certainly something that's realistic. Whereas for a lot of people, 50 nights in a Hyatt just won't be realistic because either A, you're not spending 50 nights a year in hotels, or B, Hyatt just isn't everywhere you need to be. Whereas IHG is likely to be most places you need to be, and much lower bar. So that's a great one.
Yeah.
All right. So
I'm gonna do one more thing about that,
okay.
which is a shout out to Marriott about this, which is if you have both the Bonvoy Brilliant card and a Bonvoy Business card, you'll start each year with, I think, 40 elite nights, and so you'll only need 10 to get 5 suite night awards with Marriott. You only need 10 actual nights at Marriott hotels each year. Yeah. That said, they still don't win for me.
Right. Well, yeah, because you're still such a gamble as to whether you're actually going to be able to use them or not. So yeah, I still think I'd take IHG's over Marriott's, even with that difference, but that's probably clear at this point. So let's talk about elite status, because if you got elite status, then you want to get your elite benefits, right? And so if you are staying, 50 nights a year at a hotel or something along those lines, which chain has the best elite recognition?
Yeah. So I have people will argue passionately about this, and my personal experience has been really great with Hyatt in general. On the other hand, there are specific, for example, Marriott properties where elite recognition is fantastic. And so, for example, Ritz-Carlton, which doesn't even normally doesn't require their hotels to do much for elites. The one I stayed at in Charlotte, brought us an incredible one of the best cheese and meat platters I've ever had as a welcome gift, bottle of wine, and they were just very welcoming overall. I don't think you can say which chain has the best elite recognition, because I think it's really a hotel by hotel thing.
Well, okay, yes. I think that's true. It's going to vary from hotel to hotel. But I think that, for instance, there aren't any on property benefits that I know of with Wyndham, right? I mean, maybe you get a couple bottles of water. You know what? I think you can get upgraded to a suite with Wyndham now that I think about it, but I don't think there's any sort of a guarantee. And with IHG, I know in the past anyway, the upgrades were typically not to suites, although now maybe they are upgrading suites more. I know with Hilton, for instance, they totally exclude some brands. Like I think, Hampton Inn doesn't have to give you a suite, even if they've got one and you're a Hilton Diamond member. So I think there are certain things that are coded into the program when it comes to elite recognition. And I think Hyatt has the best of that in the sense that you got guaranteed 4 p.m. late checkout for globalists when you're not at a resort anywhere that's not a resort. You got a guaranteed 4 p.m. late checkout. I've rarely ever had pushback on that. I have had it a couple times, but rarely had pushback on that. And your free breakfast benefit and lounge access or lounge access. I've never had any issues with that either.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Okay. I think you're right about that. That as far as what's codified into the program and sort of I think there's a management oversight too that seems to maybe be better with Hyatt than like Marriott, for example. But it seems like more Marriott properties go rogue, but there are Hyatt properties that go rogue too. And
for
so
sure.
you just don't know for sure. But
yep.
All right. Here's one that I think is a really fun category.
Okay.
Let's talk about what are the most valuable elite perks besides points, breakfast, and upgrades. So some of these chains have really interesting sort of miscellaneous benefits that you can get as usually a top tier elite. And I figured, well, I'll just read through them and then we could talk about which of these are the most valuable. So for example, just starting with Hyatt, free parking on awards days. Hyatt also gives you waived resort fees on paid stays. So they waive resort fees on all award stays, regardless of status, but no resort fees on paid stays. When you spend enough nights there, you get a category 1 to 7 free nights. So a free night for almost top tier Hyatts.
High tier.
You also get something called a My Concierge when you get it to 60 nights, which is an individual person that you can call or email with to ask them to do things for you. And you have Guest of Honor, which is the ability to book award nights in someone else's name as like a gift, and they get all the top tier benefits during their stay as if they were you. IHG has a really interesting, potentially really valuable one, which is when you hit 40 nights. And again, I think it was at 70 nights, you get a choice of a full year of lounge access. So literally all your stays, you could go to that Intercontinental Lounge and eat all you want for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you can actually, it's for the rest of the current year and all the next. So you can kind of game it by, if you get to 40 nights late in a calendar year, you could wait until January 1st of the next year to pick this. And then you get 2 full years of lounge access with that benefit. Marriott, once you get to titanium status, that's 75 nights, you get United Silver status. You get you get to pick a 40K free night. You get at very top tier, you get ambassador service, which is kind of like the My Concierge thing. And you also get at the very top tier something called Your 24, where you can request that, like, your stay, maybe you're arriving somewhere at 9 a.m. You could request that your stay, the 24 hours starts at 9 a.m. So you can check in at 9 a.m. And that seems pretty good. And both Hyatt and Marriott have guaranteed 4 p.m. late checkout at non-resort stays.
Yeah, so that's an interesting list of perks. So you're going to ask me what?
Which one is most valuable? Which is the single most valuable one on this list?
Oh, that totally depends on how you use it, of course, and what matters to you. But I think that the fact of the matter is Hyatt has a pretty killer set of benefits here. When you look at the wave parking on award stays and wave resort fee on award stays, those can really add up, and waived resort fee on paid stays also for globalist members. I mean, those things are potentially worth a lot if you stay at properties that would charge them. I mean, just last week I was staying at a Hyatt property where I got those for free, and I think the resort fee would have been something like $45, and then valet parking would have been another 45. So that was $90 a day right there times 5 days. So that was a nice, valuable benefit. And it didn't take me long to see how valuable that benefit was, because at the end of my stay, I needed to switch hotels, and I considered the JW Marriott in Orlando, and looked at it, and I thought, oh, wow, this looks awesome, and I can use a free night certificate to stay there. But then I looked and I was like, oh, but I'm gonna have to pay a $45 resort fee and $30 in parking. My free night's going to cost me $100 to use, and am I going to get enough time in order to make that worthwhile? So right away, I saw how valuable Hyatt Globalist status is in that type of situation. So I think the suite of benefits there from Hyatt are great. If I had to pick one, it's hard. I think for me, the free parking is big, because I do tend to go to New York City a couple of times a year. And so that adds up really quickly in a city like that. If you get free parking, it certainly makes it a lot easier for me to be able to drive right to the hotel. I know most people, if you're flying to New York, you're not going to rent a car. You're not going to need a car while you're there. So that benefit won't matter much to you. But for those of us within drivable distance of a city like New York or DC or Philadelphia, that free parking can really add up.
Yeah, no, really good point. And it's also a good point when you said the bundle with Hyatt is most valuable. Like, clearly it is, and it doesn't really make sense to say, look at them one by one, because it's not that way. They're not delivered one by one.
Right.
You get them all if you get top tier Hyatt status. I do want to just shout out that the IHG full year lounge access thing has a potential to be maybe the single most valuable if you stay at a lot of intercontinentals that have lounges. Those lounges, I'm told, I haven't been to them, are more special than your average hotel lounge, and so you're probably going to be getting actual table service and real meals at every meal, and so the potential there is very big. But as far as what sort of a average traveler is likely to do, I think things like free parking, waived resort fees, way better, more valuable.
Way better. And it bears mentioning here too that you mentioned a couple of perks at the end: the Marriott Ambassador Service, the Yoder 24. Those are things that you get with ambassador status, and ambassador status with Marriott is like a whole different ball game, because unlike Hyatt, where you need just 60 nights to get globalist status, for Marriott's ambassador, you need not only 75 nights, but also you need to have spent $20,000 with Marriott, right?
No,
you need 100 nights.
You need
100 nights.
And they've raised the price.
Oh,
to
22,
like
23. Yeah, so it's a weird number. That's right. I remember that. Yeah,
it's a number we've forgotten because it's so laughable. Like we're never going to do it.
Right.
So
it doesn't really matter to me. Yeah, exactly. So your 24 thing. I mean, unless you work for a company that's paying for lots and lots of stays at fairly nice Marriott properties, because you have to be spending almost $2,000 a month at Marriott in order for that to work out. And probably you're not going to have that benefit anyway. I would like that benefit, the Your 24 benefit, the 24-hour check-in. That's something I'd love to see Hyatt institute. Now, I've often had very good luck with early check-in, but there's been a few times where I haven't been able to get it, where it really would have been valuable to me. So I would love to see that instituted. Although the hard part with Hyatt, if you've got elite status, is that you're probably hoping for a suite. And in fact, that happened to me just last week, where I was checking in and I still had globalist status, and I saw there were suites available in the app. So I asked about getting upgraded to one. And of course I was there early. So I'm sure there was some globalist in that room the night before that wasn't going to check out until 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I had to wait for it. And I'd probably still have to wait for it no matter what, because you got to wait for them to check out in order for it to get cleaned. Right. So I don't know if the Your 24 would work out all the time, but sometimes it would be nice to be able to check in at, 8 or 9 in the morning.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Very good. So that's it.
So what's the best? So, if you've got a paid stay, what do you look to first? And what's your backup?
Yeah, 100% Hyatt. They won almost every category we talked about. They almost tied with the breakfast benefit. It's just not even close. Hyatt is obviously the winner there. They're not everywhere though. Like
Right.
they have great presence in some cities. Like they're all over like London and New York, and so there's different places where they have a large presence. But there's many places where they're not there at all. So uh, I, I like, even though Marriott like didn't win anything, I like them as my backup.
So that's interesting. Why? Why do you like Marriott as your backup? Because I think
because
that's
because
important. Hyatt
they
is obviously far and away the winner
yeah
here, but why
because
Marriott?
Marriott, right, because Marriott really is everywhere, and not only are they everywhere, but like unlike well, I'm not gonna well, no, let me say, unlike IHG, where everywhere probably means things like a Holiday Inn Express, like Marriott, you're likely to find, if you want a more upscale property wherever you are, you're probably going to find one in addition to the lower end things.
Yeah.
So IHG just doesn't have that footprint either on the mid to high tier yet. I mean, they've been growing, but they're not there yet.
Yeah, I think that's the big differentiator. I think that's it. Because IHG, I think like the moment that they get to Marriott's level of mid to high tier property coverage, then I think I would be switching to IHG as the secondary choice.
Yep.
But it's like,
Agree.
I want to be able to stay. The whole reason I play this game is because I want to be able to stay at places that I wouldn't ordinarily pay for. And in most places, I probably could pay for a Holiday Inn Express. It's probably a valuable or a decent value, something
Yeah.
I could afford to pay for. Whereas, I might not choose to pay for the autograph collection property or luxury collection, whatever it is that I can use my Marriott points or free night certificates for. So that's why Marriott's number 2 for me also, but I'm rooting for you, IHG. If you got a good suite of benefits. So if you just get more of those types of properties, then I'd be happy to stay in a Holiday Inn Express now and then so that I can enjoy great benefits when I'm in a city where you've got all of those mid and upper tier properties.
Yeah. And as we're asking IHG to do things, one more thing for us. Waive the resort fees on award stays. Hyatt does it. Hilton does it. Wyndham does it.
Wyndham does it. Come on, IHG. Wyndham.
IHG and Marriott do not do it.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. If Wyndham can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, for sure. Right. I mean, come on. Look at the cash rates at lots of Wyndhams. If they can afford to not charge that fee on the awards, come on, IHG. Get with the program.
Right.
All right. We got that out there. That brings us, I think, my friends, to this week's question of the week. I think that wraps up the main event, right? So the question of the week this week came in from our Facebook group. And so Sherry in our Facebook group is the Frequent Miler Insiders. If you haven't joined it, you can join that group in order to ask and answer lots of questions. So Sherry said, we are currently in Spain, and I'm using my Chase card for everything to avoid foreign transaction fees. Now, I should mention, I don't know which Chase card she's using, but not all Chase cards have no foreign transaction fees. So be sure you're checking that. But anyway, Sherry goes on to say, in several places, I've been given the choice of whether I want the charge to be in US dollars or euros. What are your thoughts to the best answer on this? So that's part 1. And part 2 is a reader chimed in and said, this would be a great topic for the podcast. Also, which card to have in your wallet for withdrawal abroad, in terms of ATMs. But let's go back. Let's answer Sherry's question. So do you want the charge to be in US dollars or local currency, Greg?
Always local currency. If you ask for it in US dollars, which sometimes they'll try to suggest, you're going to be given a very poor, basically, exchange rate, not the current like agreed upon international exchange rate. So you're going to be wasting money by paying in US dollars. Don't do that. Doesn't save you from foreign transaction fees either. So like if you have a card that charges foreign transaction fees, you might think, oh, if I'm charging US dollars, I won't get that foreign transaction fee. No, you'll get 2 things. You'll get the conversion fee and the foreign transaction fee. So yeah, you don't want either of those things. So pay with a card like the Sapphire Preferred or Sapphire Reserve, which is probably what this person was talking about. and yeah, ask for it in local currency. So in the
Yeah.
euro in that example.
Yeah, in that
Yeah.
example, definitely. And like Greg said, a lot of places will not only suggest, but I've had merchants like go ahead and select the US dollars and then hand me the
Yeah.
terminal. And I've had to say, oh, no, I want to pay in local currency, because I'm sure that there's a little bit of a moneymaker in there in terms of charging you in US dollars because of the high conversion fees. They must get some sort of a kickback. So yeah,
Could
make sure
be.
you watch out for that, that you say, oh no, I like to pay in local currency. And I'll usually, even if they quote me in US dollars, price, I'll say, well, what is it in euro or whatever it might be
Yeah.
that's local. So definitely local currency there. And then the second piece of that, what card or cards or what do you have in your wallet to withdraw cash when you're abroad?
Yeah. What I recommend everybody get is the Schwab debit card. So Schwab has a free checking account that includes a debit card, which not only doesn't charge foreign transaction fees, but it actually and doesn't charge any ATM fees, but it actually pays you back refunds any ATM fees charged by the ATM operator. So you could get out of having any of those fees. Just go to whatever country, use your Schwab debit card to withdraw money. You're golden.
Yeah, and I
Enough
think that
said.
that's also I'm going to add to that I don't usually exchange any foreign currency either ahead of time or at the airport, because the
Same.
airport foreign currency exchange usually is a horrible rate. You get ripped off there, and I've heard of people doing it at their bank in advance and that sort of thing. And I don't do that either because I can just go to the ATM and pull out a small amount of local cash. I don't always do that anymore either. I used to always, when I arrived, withdraw like the equivalent of 20 or $50 or something so I'd have enough for an emergency.
Yeah.
But I don't even always do that anymore because cards are so prevalent these days that I don't often end up needing the cash.
Right. The I guess the one exception would be if you're in a place that where tipping is expected, which luckily is not usually the case outside of the U.S.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, to your point, I loved in New Zealand, like tipping's like almost never expected. The only place where it is on things like free walking tours, where that's how they get paid. And you know what? They usually stop their tour near an ATM, so
Right.
you can just go get on the tour, wait till you see an ATM, withdraw the equivalent of 10 or 20 bucks in local currency, and then boom, then you don't have to worry about are you going home with cash that you can't use at home.
Right. And the advantage of having a Schwab card is that, like Greg said, they rebate the local ATM fees. So unlike a lot of ATM cards, if you only take out 10 or $20, it doesn't matter. You're not getting hit with a fee that's a huge percentage of the transaction because you're not going to pay that fee anyway. So that's definitely a good card to have in your wallet there. And the other thing I want to mention with this that's relevant but not exactly this, I just recently read, I didn't know about this, so I wanted to mention it because I imagine there are readers who don't either. Many people who are familiar with travel to Argentina might know that for years now, the way to go to Argentina is to bring $100 bills with you, US currency, because the official exchange rate is horrible or has been horrible when using a credit card. Whereas if you exchange your dollars, you get basically double the value on the street with the blue dollar. But that changed at the end of last year. And I didn't know that until just the other day that there was a new law that took effect. And so now foreigners using foreign credit cards in Argentina are getting a rate that's almost identical anyway to the blue dollar rate. So if you're going to
That's
Argentina
great.
nowadays, you can bring your credit cards and not worry about bringing as much cash. Now, I don't know, there may still be places that don't take credit cards. I haven't been to Argentina. So, don't go to Argentina without any cash in your pocket and say, but Nick told me I could use my card everywhere, because I didn't tell you that. I told you that if you use your card, you're no longer going to get ripped off in the same way as before. But I think it's only for MasterCards and Visa issued outside of Argentina. So I don't know if they take Amex anywhere in Argentina anyway, but if they do, you're not going to get that good rate. You're going to get the awful, official rate, so to speak. So that's just something to mention that goes
So
along with the foreign currency thing.
If a grocery store in Argentina does accept American Express, should you use your gold card there and get your grocery bonus?
Definitely shouldn't, since the grocery bonus on the Amex cards that have one is for US supermarkets, not abroad. Whereas if you have the City Premier card, for instance, that earns 3x grocery, then you would presumably still get your 3x grocery in Argentina or wherever else if it
That's
codes
right.
as grocery. So
Yep.
All right.
All
My friends,
that
that brings
was a
us to
little
the
easy
end.
one
Yes,
for Nick.
so as you teed that one right up for me. Thank you very much. If you've enjoyed today's episode and you'd like to get more of this stuff in your email inbox each day or each week, go to frequentmiler.com/subscribe. Again, that's frequentmiler.com/subscribe to join our email list. You can follow us on all the various social media, and wherever you're listening to the show or watching it, please like it, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, enable notifications, all of those things help out our channel, and leave us a comment or ask us a question in the comments if you have a question about something. Of course, if you got a question that you'd like to have considered for a future question of the week or mailbag segment of our show, you want to send that too.
Send it to mailbag@frequentmiler.com. Bye, everybody.